This Dragon Hunter build is a burst build that was used first when 3v3s came out because it got a lot of support from its allies, but I think that it's actually really good in Conquest too, because with the use of Trapper Rune, it can actually rotate and disengage from fights even if it doesn't have that much sustain. So I call this the silent killer because this build uses the Trapper Rune, and with the Trapper Rune you get a lot of stealth, and when you're in stealth you can basically shoot true shots and your Spear of Justice, and these are the two main abilities that people want to dodge. And because you're in stealth, you don't really show off those animations as well, and it's harder for people to react to them because they can only see the projectile come out. They can't see the animation of you winding up like this and then trying to shoot it. So it makes it a lot harder to counterplay, and that's why this is called the silent killer, because you can't really see it coming. So yeah, the idea is Marauder with Trapper Runes. You have 52% crit chance with Marauders, and you can't really go Zerker because that puts you at like 11k HP. And you don't have virtues or meditations in this build, right? Because you're going Radiance instead of Valor. So it means you don't have a lot of Fury uptime. You do get Fury from Procession of Blades, but generally you're going to get your crit chance from Radiance, which is from Righteous Instinct. So whenever you have Retal, you will gain 25% crit chance, and you will gain Might over time. So this is just really good because it allows you to get your crit chance up. This is a burst build, so you need that crit chance. And if you have Procession of Blades and Retal up, then you're gonna have what, like 90-ish crit chance, which is really good. So you're gonna get your Retal from basically using your heal skill, and whenever you use a virtue. So in virtues you get Virtue of Retribution, which gives you more Retal duration, and whenever you use one of your virtues you'll gain Retal as well. So you can have pretty decent Retal uptime, which gives you your crit chance. Also in Radiance you have Renewed Justice, so whenever you kill a foe you'll gain your F1 back, so you're using your F1 a lot, so it's nice that you can get it back as a little bit more often than just the cooldown of it. And then obviously you'll blind foes next to you when you use your F1, so this isn't really that important, but it gives you a little bit of light aura, which reduces incoming condition damage, so it's okay. You have Retribution, so yeah, you have Retal uptime, and whenever you have Retal you're gonna give yourself 10% extra damage, so that's really good. Next is Radiant Power. You gain 150 Ferocity, just baseline, you don't need anything to get that, and that's like 10% extra damage. So as you can see here, we're getting some modifiers here, and you'll gain extra crit chance against burning foes. So yeah, you're over the crit chance if you have Fury, Retal, and the foe is burning, and that's often very possible to get, right? So we'll talk about how Spear of Justice has really good synergy with this build. And then in virtues you have, whenever you use a virtue you'll get one boon depending on what virtue you use. You have Unscathed Contender. When you have Aegis you gain 20% extra damage, so this is pretty good modifier, but it's very unreliable because it's so easy to remove Aegis, so don't worry about it too much, but it's still the best option. And then you have Absolute Resolution, which gives you 3 Condi Cleanse, which is really important. Inspiring Virtue could be good, but I think that on a build that has low Condi Cleanse, you really want this. So, and obviously, yeah, your only Condi Cleanse is Contemplation of Purity otherwise, so it's nice to have at least 2 Condi Cleanses on a build. And Power of the Virtuous gives you extra damage for each boon on you, and it reduces the recharge of your virtues, which is really good because your virtues are really important because they give you your Retal. And sometimes, yeah, you'll get a lot of boons on you, but often this doesn't really give you that much modifier. Lastly, you have Indomitable Courage. this gives you a stun break and stability on your F3. So that's really important because this build only has one stun break on it, which is Contemplation of Purity, and it's also your Condi Cleanse, right? So if you're using your stun break for Condi Cleanse, then you don't have it for your stun break. So it's really nice that you have Shield of Courage, because you have a secondary stun break as well as, you know, having a secondary Condi Cleanse on your virtues. So it's really good. It allows you to take 2 traps, right, and to be more aggressive with your utilities. Next, in Dragon Hunter, you have Piercing Light. Just, you know, it makes sense because you have 4 traps, and you deal slow on your traps, so it's kind of hard for people to really be aggressive on you when they have slow on them. So it's really good. Defender's Dogma is kind of okay because whenever you block, you will reduce the cooldown of your F1, so you can spam it out more often. Zealot's Aggression, whenever you do your passive F1 on someone, it'll cripple them, but mostly you're going to have your active out, and that'll cripple them as well. So whenever you hit a foe that's crippled, you'll deal 10% more damage, and you have a lot of cripple on this build. So you have cripple on your F1 whenever you tether someone, you have cripple on your auto attack in Longbow whenever it bounces to a target, and you have cripple on your Hunter's Ward whenever it's pulsing its damage, and you have Test of Faith whenever it hits someone, it'll cripple them. So you have a lot of cripple on this build, and you're dealing 10% extra damage. And I'm also using Sigil of Opportunity, which is basically the same thing, but, you know, half as much damage. It's 5% extra damage to movement impaired foes. So you have a lot of extra damage to crippled foes, and you have a lot of cripple, so that's really nice. And then Pure of Sight, you deal bonus damage based on your distance to the enemy. So minimum is like melee range, 5% extra damage, and then maximum is 15% extra damage. I'm not sure exactly what the maximum bonus damage is, but True Shot has a really long range, so yeah, you can get a lot of damage from being far away from your enemies, especially because you're running Sigil of Separation, which is whenever you are more than 500 distance away from your target. And lastly, you have Big Game Hunter, which is really nice because this build doesn't really focus on doing combos. So like what a lot of people do with Dragon Hunter is they'll tether someone, and then they'll put down their trap, and then they'll knock someone out, and then they'll pull them back in, and they'll do like big combos like that. And that's still possible to do, but often with this build, you're gonna just be chasing people down and tethering them, which is gonna basically cripple them for a really long time, because the duration of your tether is now really long, as you can see. And you're dealing 15% extra damage, so that's even more modifiers to your target. As you can see here, I'm doing like 2k autos to the target. So you're poking them really hard from afar, and you're adding Vuln, which is more damage, and the fact of your tether being longer duration makes it so that people can't really counterplay your combos as much. So like if your tether only lasts 6 seconds, and everyone who's tethered knows, hey, I just need to, you know, save my cooldown for, you know, 6 more seconds and wait for him to pull me, and then I can use it immediately to avoid being comboed. But when your tether is this long, you can kind of like pressure the target and do stuff like, oh, you think I'm gonna pull you? Well, I'm just hitting you for now. And you're kind of like poking them, and they have to play aggressively. You're forcing them to play aggressively, and if they do play aggressively, then you can put down your traps and then combo them. So it does make people panic when they're, you know, tethered by a Dragon Hunter, and the longer they're tethered, you know, the more pressure it's dealing to them, not just from them being tethered, but just like mentally, because they're trying to play around it for so long. So yeah, Big Game Hunter is really good, and it gives you more leeway. So like if you tether someone without Big Game Hunter, you kind of are forced to go in and do your combo very soon, and it often makes it harder for you to land the combo because you know, there's like only a a short window that you can do it, and people can counterplay that. So Big Game Hunter allows you to kind of like land your tether when it's convenient to you, and then land your trap when it's convenient to you, because there's more time allowed in between them, and it's just really good for the whole playstyle of Dragon Hunter, in my opinion. So I think that heavy light, while it is good, I think it's not really, there's not as much play to it, right? So, and then obviously it is kind of important to not just pull people whenever you can, because you lose your 15% damage increase, right? You want to kind of like keep them tethered as long as you can, so that you get the extra damage bonus and the cripple, which is more modifiers, and then kind of like when it's about to end, then you can pull them so that you get as much damage as you can out of the tether before you have to, or before it runs out. So next we will show so you have Trapper Rune, we have energy cleansing on the sword focus. That's pretty standard. So the idea of the build, right, is you're putting down traps, and all your traps, they basically give out an effect. So this gives out a heal and regen. So you want to kind of use your heal trap, you want to use it aggressively, right? So if I'm like kiting someone and I use my heal trap out here, and then they stop chasing me, well, then I don't get my heal. You want to use your heal trap basically when someone is like right on top of you, in a way, because that'll put slow and blind on them, and that'll help heal for you quite a bit. And then it also heals you for quite a bit, and you can precast it too. So like if a fight's about to happen, you just put your heal trap down, and it sort of like allows you to front load your healing, because then you can use like 2 heal traps like back to back right after someone triggers it. So the heal trap is really good sustain for the build, and it makes up for the build not really having much sustain otherwise. Let's talk about the weapon skills. So Longbow is what you're going to be in most of the time. Your auto attack will deal a lot of damage, right? Because when you tether the target, you're going to have a lot of cripple, burning, and if you have retal and stuff like that, you're going to be critting for like 2k, as you can see. So it's a lot of damage, and oftentimes that's enough to bait out cooldowns from your foe. So just doing, as you can see, it just procced. But just doing your auto attack from afar is just good enough damage. So just poking people like that is good. And then when you see that they dodge, you want to immediately true shot after that. And true shot is it's a pretty heavy nuke here, as you can see. It does 7,000 damage there on the medium golem. So you want to make sure that your true shot lands. You don't want to just be spamming it out, because people are playing around it. And as I said, you can hide your animations with traps, but not always is it good to use a trap that's a 24-second cooldown just to land a 8-second cooldown ability. True shot's pretty spammable. So you do want to just poke and then wait for them to dodge and then use true shot, because if they dodge again, well, that's 2 dodges. And if they do use 2 dodges, you can immediately at that point say, oh, they've used 2 dodges, well, I'm going to put down Dragon's Maw, Procession of Blades, and I'm going to pull them through it. And if they try to get out, well, that's gonna just not gonna work apparently. But you can pull them into your traps like that, and then they'll take a lot of damage, because they'll have to walk out. They'll be crippled because, well, first of all, they'll be stuck in the Dragon's Maw, so they won't even be able to dodge out, because dodging is actually how you get out of the Dragon's Maw, because you have to dodge into the wall and then stun break. But they won't be able to do that if they use 2 dodges. So you gotta kind of count dodges with this build, because it helps you to land your burst. Next, you have Deflecting Shot. This is kind of hard to land, so when you cast it, you can move. So like if your enemy is moving, you want to like sort of move in the direction that they're going, so that you can sort of like make your deflecting shot trajectory change as well. So like if they're here and then they're moving right and I'm shooting it this way, well, I can move right and then it can kind of like angle in a little bit better. So you have to kind of be really good with your movement and your aiming on deflecting shot. But it's basically just a blind that it blocks a little bit of projectiles, but that's kind of hard to time, and it will knock back foes. So it's really good for like if you get your test of faith right, you can pull them through it and then push them back through it, and you can get a lot of damage like that. As you can see, test of faith hitting for 5,000 damage. So yeah, you can do a lot of damage with this ability, even though it does no damage itself. And then you have Symbol of Energy. So Symbol of Energy is kind of a slow ability, but it gives vigor. So a lot of times you don't want to throw this out away from you. You want to throw it kind of near you, because the vigor is really important. But it gives a little bit of, it gives like 12 seconds of burning. So it does deal a decent bit of Condi damage, as you can see here. Because it can, well, it actually only procs a little bit of the burning. But anyways, it does a decent amount of damage, and it's a symbol. So if you put someone in your Dragon's Maw, then you can land this on them. And your last Longbow skill is Hunter's Ward. So Hunter's Ward is a kind of a hard skill to land because it's such a big animation. But if it basically pulses a little bit of cripple, and then the final hit will put down like this ring around the enemies and do a lot of damage. And it's sort of like a mini Dragon's Maw. So, but it can also proc on multiple enemies, right? So it's pretty good, and that allows you to have like 2 kind of Dragon's Maw effects. And just in team fights, it's such a good skill because people have to play around it so much, and it's so easy to land on people just standing on node. So yeah, if you're just putting this in team fights and putting down like rings, even if people have stability, it's taxing them of their stability very often. So it's just a really good skill. And if you do land it on someone who's isolated, it's, you know, it's a 5-second ring duration, so it can really get people killed. So yeah, so how you want to play with this is you want to generally be from afar. You can use Hunter's Ward at the beginning of a team fight, so you can, you know, like bait out like stability and stuff like that, and Aegises. And then you want to be finding your target. So say this is my target, you want to probably true shot them immediately as soon as you tether them. If they dodge your tether, then you can immediately true shot anyways, and if they don't dodge your tether, then they might dodge your true shot, right? So it depends, but you want to find your target, you want to F1 them, true shot them, and then you want to like go into melee range, put down your trap, and then if they try to, you don't want to like pull them immediately, you want to kind of like pressure them, put down more traps in your test of faith. And obviously if they try to get out of your Procession of Blades, then they're gonna either need to dodge roll out, because then they're, you know, they don't want to get hit by the test of fate while getting out of your Procession of Blades, so they have to dodge out. But then they're also tethered, so you can like pull them back in to your test of faith and kind of like deal extra damage, and then they're back in your Procession of Blades anyways. So yeah, you kind of don't want to like pull them into your traps. You want to trap on top of them, and then when they try to get out of your traps, you pull them back into it. And then it just depends on what the enemy's cooldowns are and how you can kind of feel that out. But if you know like they don't have any cooldowns, you can go aggressive, right, and just, you know, put all your traps down and then pull them into it. Obviously I have a cooldown here, but yeah, you can just like do a massive pull here and just, you know, Dragon's Maul them into it, CC them, and then just put all your symbols down. Would be the big combo if you know that they have no cooldowns. But generally, people are going to be playing around you, right? So you have to kind of do this thing where you tether them and then just pressure them, and then once they try to get out of your traps, then you pull them back in, and then you start doing your damage again.